good afternoon, good morning, depending where you guys are joining us today. We're really excited that you are able to join us today for the Complete College Accelerator monthly webinar. We're really excited to have two great leaders in the space of pathways come and join us for our webinar. They are coming from the Ohio Association of Community Colleges, where they have spearheaded statewide success initiatives at community college through its Student Success Center since 2012. And I'm really excited for you guys to learn about their comprehensive data dashboards, their community affinity groups, and the way that they've looked at their leadership and training for current and future community college leaders in the space of pathways. Today, we are joined by both Dr. Haas and Laura Rittner. Dr. Haas is the Provost and Chief Strategy Officer for Marion Technical College. Dr. Haas joined Marion Technical College in 2001 after a 25-year career in the wholesale electronics and retail, computer, and internet business. He began his career as a business and IT faculty member and served as Marion Tech's Associate Dean of Business and IT and Dean of Institutional Effectiveness, Vice President of Academic and Student Services, and currently as Provost and Chief Strategy Officer. So Bob has been very busy from what we can hear. He has also served as a member of local school boards and as a Student Success Academy mentor and peer reviewer for the Higher Learning Commission. We are also very excited to be joined by Laura Rittner, the Vice President of Operations and Student Success for the Ohio Association of Community Colleges. Laura has over 20 years of experience in community college leadership and student success. She joined the Ohio Association of Community Colleges, OACC, in 2013 as the Director of Research and Data Analytics, following 7 years at Lakeland Community College in Kirtland, Ohio, where she served as the Director of Institutional Research. Currently, Laura is Vice President of Operations and Student Success at OACC, where she supports overall association management and leads the organization's student success initiatives. These include Ohio's Guided Pathways Project, the Student Success Leadership Institute, and the Leadership Academy for Student Success. Her national involvement includes serving as a Pathways coach for the American Association of Community Colleges, a Texas Pathway coach, and currently a coach for NCII's Rural Pathways Project. She is a Complete College America Fellow, which we are very excited about, and she is dedicated to increasing college completion rates, scaling evidence-based strategies across community colleges, and advancing policies that support student success. So you're probably tired of hearing from me, so I'm going to give it to our experts to really dive into today's conversation.
Thank you, Jennifer. I appreciate that kind introduction. I know that Dr. Haas and I are very excited to be with all of you this afternoon and share a little bit about the work underway in Ohio with our network of community colleges and very specifically Marion Technical College. So I think you've heard a lot about us already. Just on a personal note, I've really valued engaging with the Complete College America network and have learned so much from other leaders in other states that are part of this national movement. And so it's always an honor and a pleasure to be invited to join a webinar like this and share what we've been doing in Ohio. And so with that, I'll ask Bob to say a couple of words and then share our agenda for this session.
Well, thanks, Laura. What we hope to accomplish today is, from an agenda perspective, is we just want to really introduce a little bit of what we've been doing in Ohio, both from a Ohio Association of Community College, the entire 22 college system overview, and then we'll also share some specific things on how we've applied some of this to our work at Marion Technical College. So we're going to go over some dashboards that we think are very helpful. They're very helpful, especially for the context in Ohio that we are dealing with. And then we're going to also discuss some of the work that Marion Tech does, specifically with a partnership with the Ohio Department of Job and Family Services, where we get some wage outcomes. Again, in Ohio, it's especially important to understand the post-employment, the postgraduate employment outcomes as we go through things. So, and Laura, you can talk about what we hope everybody walks away with from this.
Great, thanks, Bob. So, as Bob just shared, we've done a lot of work around student success and very specifically the supporting data to monitor our progress and success. So, we're going to talk about some of the work that has been completed and is still evolving around dashboards to help support our college leaders, and also new things that are on the horizon, specifically around how we are looking at employment outcomes and employment metrics. And this is something that has been coming up out of the Success Center and our work, but also responding to what we're hearing from state legislators and policymakers. You'll hear more about that later in the session, but we are moving to a point where our funding model will have metrics related to post-completion outcomes and how students are faring in the labor market. And then finally, doing a deeper dive into how Marion Technical College, which I'll brag about Bob, is one of our leaders in this space and has been recognized by the Chancellor and many others for their work on how they're looking at labor market data consistently to inform the college's work around student success and how they make decisions about what to do next.
Good.
So that's
Thanks,
what we
Laura.
hope you'll take away. Yes, Bob?
Yeah. No, I was going to say we would encourage people to put questions in the chat as you go, and we will address those either throughout the presentation or afterwards. We're also going to make sure that a copy of the presentation gets sent around to everybody.
Thank you. So I'll give a very quick overview of the Ohio Association of Community Colleges, since that is where I sit every day. We are the membership association for the public two-year colleges in Ohio. We have 22 members. You can see our family spread across the state in our visual here with the map of Ohio. We do a lot of work in the policy and advocacy space. We try to be the one voice for the colleges with the governor's office and with the state legislature. This is a very active time for us because we're in the midst of a state budget. So that continues to be a primary focus of the OACC. But then we've also had the opportunity to do significant work in the student success space with our Success Center for Ohio's community colleges. And we really depend on the leaders across our colleges to do that work. So starting with presidents and board of trustee members who serve on OACC's board and meet regularly, and then flowing through the institution, we have touch points with our academic officers, fiscal officers, institutional research, student affairs, workforce. There are others that are not listed here, including marketing, human resources. So we're serving as a kind of common, ground opportunity for folks who have the same roles across the colleges to come together and meet and advance our work collectively. So looking at who we serve, we have over 200,000 for-credit students across the 22 institutions, as well as 40,000 who are involved in non-credit and workforce skill development. We have learned a lot about our students doing surveys and other research, and part of our role as OACC on the advocacy front is to continue to educate legislators and others who are making decisions at the state level about who community college students are in Ohio. So you can see in a snapshot here, 37% of our students are parents, 41% first-generation college students, 41% also in some form of public assistance, over 60% eligible for federal financial aid, and 75% of our students are enrolled part-time. So many of the things that are proposed at the state policy level are more designed really for university students and a traditional college-aged undergraduate. So, again, it's visuals like this that help us explain better who we serve. We also have the majority of the high school students who are enrolled in post-secondary education through the state's College Credit Plus program. We serve 73% of the students in that program, and we serve 63% of the adult learners who are age 25 and over.
And I can talk a little bit about Marion Technical College. We're a fairly small college, about 3,500 students, just over half are the early college students or the dual enrollment students. We also run programs at two locally located state correctional facilities. We have about 350 students there. And then we also have 1,300 general students. General students are the traditional high school graduates who are not incarcerated. We have about 120 employees with 55 faculty, uh, several grant-funded employees, and like myself, a lot of our employees have more than one role. My current role is the Chief Academic Officer and also the uh, heavy involvement in IR. Again, we're small. Our county population is 65,000. We're located just about 60 miles north of Columbus. Our market area, which is Marion and the 7 surrounding counties, has a population of about 460,000. We offer one BSN degree, the Bachelor of Science in Nursing, and then we have a traditional mix of associate and certificate programs, primarily career focused. We were recently named with the reclassification of the Carnegie system as a college of opportunity, which means that we're one of 61 community colleges across the nation that was recognized for having a good combination of student access, in other words, opening our doors to multiple students, and then also graduate workforce success. We were very surprised about that. We got notice a few weeks ago. We're not exactly sure what it means, but we're happy to be in that group. Part of what we get out of the Complete College Accelerator project is information that helps us improve in the way that we serve students. For the purpose of this presentation, we're going to be focusing on driving the behavioral changes, minimizing institutional performance gaps. We have a data-informed, we're continuing to develop a data-informed decision-making culture. And we really want to improve certainly the number of, in our case, Marion Tech students who earn degrees and credentials of value. We are very concerned with, as you'll see later, tracking workforce outcomes. We know what our students earn, where they work, and things like that. A lot of what Laura's group does, OACC, helps with the state and federal policy changes. One of the big concerns that we have currently is the potential for reducing Pell dollars under if students are not enrolled for, I think it's 7.5 credit hours, redefining full-time as 15 hours instead of 12 hours. And so we count on the OACC to carry the message as to the impact that kind of thing, those kind of changes might have on students. Okay, we're going to go to the Success Center and data dashboards. And Laura, I'll let you get started, and then I'll flip over and start actually demonstrating some of these things maybe.
Exciting. Okay, thanks, Bob. So I'm going to talk a little bit about some context and foundational pieces of this work. We really started our journey around student success data when Ohio moved to the community college performance funding model, which has been a little over 10 years ago now. And so I want to talk about how that model works, because I think it's an important piece to consider as you view the evolution of our data support for the institutions. So when we started the funding model and moved to performance funding, we had a set of guiding principles that you can see here, wanting to really be true to the mission and priorities of our community colleges across the state, thinking about access and completion, and also maintaining quality and serving our workforce development mission. It has also been important over time to align with state priorities and initiatives, and that's why we'll talk to you today about how the model is now moving to include an employment metric. To the extent possible, we've tried to develop a model that is sustainable, consistent, and reliable over time. We do have a robust set of metrics, and I'll walk through each of the components. And then incentivizing institutions to adopt evidence-based practices to help them succeed has been a principle. So thinking about things like, how does the funding model align with developmental education reform and other efforts in the field? And finally, to be simple to understand and communicate, at least on a high level, that our funding model is looking at, I think we can say now, like the title of this presentation, student success from entry through to employment. So the model has three major components. Half of the funding goes to cost-based course completions, 25% to what we call success points, and then the final 25% to cost-based completion milestones. And I'll spend a minute on each of those. But what's important here too is the access category weights that are listed in the gray box. So we give additional weight or additional funding to students who are from combinations, any one or more of these categories. The adult students over 25 at time of first enrollment, low income, which is based on Pell eligibility, minority students, African American, Hispanic, and Native American, and finally academically underprepared, which has been based on how students are performing in the remediation-free standards in mathematics. And all of the data in our model are averaged over 3 years, and there is a bit of lag time for some of the metrics. So I point that out because there are some reform efforts and student success strategies that are implemented that take, a significant amount of time and resources and commitment from institutions, and colleges may not see the full benefit of those in the funding model for a number of years. So the course completions are pretty straightforward, looking at the level of the course and the subject area, and then how many FTE pass that course. And for this bucket of the funding, the access category weight is a flat add-on of 15% for a student who has any combination of those risk factors that I shared.
And Laura, I might add on this that the course completions and some of the other funding components differ based on the type of course or the type of degree someone earns. So to make it very simple, we would get more funding for a health course or an engineering course completion than we do for an English course or a psychology course completion.
Thanks, Bob. That's a great point. So in the success points, we look at the completion of college level English and math within the first 30 college credit hours. This actually came out of Ohio's work with Strong Start to Finish, and also work with Complete College America on developmental education reform. Prior to fiscal year 2022, it just looked at students who completed developmental English and math and then enrolled in the first college level course. And so the metric now is very clearly focused on getting through those courses and doing so within the first 30 credit hours, which is a proxy for the first year. We also look at completion here of 12, 24, and 36 credit hours, which are, metrics showing that students are progressing and have some momentum towards their degree or whatever goal they have at the institution.
Mhm.
And then finally, in our completion milestones, we look at associate degree completion, as well as what we call long-term certificates. Those are certificates that have 30 or more credit hours. And then also when students transfer after they've earned 12 or more credit hours. This one is also a cost basis. So, as Bob was providing the example, just in general terms, a STEM associate degree is going to be weighted more than one in arts and humanities.
Mhm. And
And
Laura,
go
I
ahead,
would
Bob.
add real quick on here that the bachelor's degrees, several community colleges in Ohio now have bachelor degrees. Those also enter into the funding formula with a degree completion sort of thing. So
Thank you. But remind me about that again, Bob, because we need to update this slide.
yeah, we have to update
We need
this.
another box.
Yeah, yeah.
So, and then finally on this, the weighting for those access categories, it's a ladder effect. So it's 25% if a student has one of the categories, and goes all the way up to 200% if a student has all four.
Mhm.
So that's the model just in a nutshell. It is a distribution model. So we have a fixed pot. You can see here the 491 million and how that breaks out across the colleges. This is an important point because, obviously some institutions have a larger share of the funding than others, but because the pot is not growing based on growth in the metrics, your performance or how well you do in the model is dependent on the other institutions across the state. And it's possible, if everybody improves, that there's not necessarily additional funding for that work.
Mhm. And I would add here that in FY25, there were 23 community colleges in the funding model. This moving forward, there are currently 22 active community colleges. We lost one college, Eastern Gateway Community College, had to close for a variety of reasons. The fixed funding method for this makes it really, really important, as the dashboards will demonstrate here in a little bit, especially for smaller colleges like Marion Technical College. We can be doing better, but if we're not, if every other college is doing even better than we are, then we may end up losing funding, even if we are improving. And again, I want to reemphasize, this is Ohio is a 100% completion funding state. If students enroll and don't complete or succeed or pass a course, we get no funding for that student from the state. We of course would get some tuition funding.
Great point, Bob. So, as I think I said a bit ago, this really opened the door for us to have a lot more discussions about what's happening with students and their outcomes, and to step into that space and provide these really actionable data dashboards to help colleges understand where they're doing well and where they have opportunities for improvement. So we, have worked together over a period of time to build out this funding model data dashboard. It's now in Tableau. It used to be static reports that were in Word and Excel. So it has evolved over time to allow more functionality for colleges. And we're looking at things like, what share of the funding are they getting? What is the funding per FTE? How are they doing in those major components that I talked about? And the course completions, the success points, and the completion milestones. And then how does enrollment and trends or fluctuations in enrollment over time relate to some of those different metrics and outcomes?
Mm-hmm.
So
And
with that, I think we're going to jump. Are we going to jump
yeah,
in, Bob?
yeah, we'll jump in. I'm going to, hopefully this will all work from a technical standpoint. I'm going to stop sharing this one and then come up and share one of the actual dashboards that we can use now. Let's see if I can find it. We want to look at the performance funding, the subsidy dashboard at this point, Laura?
Yes.
Okay,
Start with that one.
we'll start with this one. Okay, and I hope that I hope everyone can see this. It's really a pretty neat dashboard, and I'll go over the top part and then we'll just play around with a little bit. And if anybody would like to see a particular sort of thing, please just put something in the chat and we'll see if we can do that. So there's a dashboard overview. There's a share of funding dollars per FTE, which helps us understand how we're doing. That kind of equalizes out colleges regardless of their size. There's course completion, success points, milestones, model cost, and so on. And I'll pick on Marion Tech. I think that's probably the best way to do this. And so I'm going to, let's see, we'll include, we'll just include all colleges in this comparison. And the first thing we can look at, for example, is SSI stands for state share of instruction. We call it subsidy in Ohio. So this lets us know in a tabular fashion how we do compared to all the other colleges. So we can roll down through here and find out what our share was. We can highlight, we can get some ideas of what's going on for a particular year and so on. If we look at ranking over time, we want to know how we're doing over the various years. We can select Marion Tech, for example, and then that shows our progress. This particular metric is course completions per FTE. If you remember, course completions are 50% of the funding formula for us, along with some weighting things, but it gives you an idea of our rank on that particular metric. We can also just use a drop down to get total funding. Again, this is on an FTE basis. We're still trying to figure out what we did really well here to put us number one in the total share of funding per FTE on that. Part of that, of course, depends as your enrollment goes up with early college enrollment. That's going to drive our FTE up, but not necessarily our funding at the same rate. Most colleges have elected to display who they are, but colleges have the option of just being college number 5 instead of an actual name if they want to do that. There was a lot of concern, maybe not a lot of concern. There was concern initially about basically disclosing which college was which from the college standpoint. I'll just click on another one here just to give you an idea how this dashboard works. Again, completion per FTE, total funding. This is one of the access measures that Laura mentioned with the different access weight categories. In effect, it was an attempt to equalize those colleges that served a higher risk population of students. Laura, is there anything else here that you think might be interesting to take a look at, or do we want to jump in and talk about the other dashboard here?
We can go to the next one, Bob, and then we can always come back if anyone has questions
Okay.
or wants to see
So
other
again,
components of it.
So we're displaying 2 dashboards. This one really talks about the subsidy share and how all that works. Let's see, I'll go back to here and I'm going to share the PowerPoint again.
So the next dashboard, I'll talk a little bit about it here, that we developed really came out of our guided pathways work and our partnership with the Community College Research Center. We were following very closely what was happening at the national level. I think Jennifer mentioned in my bio that I was part of the AACC Pathways Project that started in 2016. And so we were at the same time in Ohio starting our Student Success Leadership Institute, which is our guided pathways project in Ohio, and wanting to, grab and pull down all of those resources that were being developed at the national level and share them with the Ohio colleges. So we started a partnership with the Community College Research Center that we've had for many years now and have, really benefited from tremendously in terms of the knowledge development and support. And some of you may know that, they worked on coming up with and testing and doing all of the research and analysis around a set of early momentum metrics, helping institutions look at what is happening for students in the first semester and first year. So those early touch points with the institution that we know now are predictive of longer term success. And so in the same way that we were looking at the performance funding model outcomes, we added this layer to the work to really see what's happening to students early on so that we can improve, have an opportunity to, come together as a college and identify what's working, what's not working, and try to make changes in that early momentum that then lead to increased completions in the longer run. And so Bob, I'll let you talk a little bit about the dashboard itself, if you want to open that one.
Sure.
Kudos to John Fink from CCRC, who really has been the architect behind a lot of this work and continues to meet with our colleges to talk about how we are doing.
So basically, the idea here is these metrics drive the dashboard that we saw earlier. If we're doing the work that we need to do with the metrics, the theory is then the funding will follow that, since it's a success kind of a funding model. This one is early momentum, and you can see there's a variety of metrics that we can use. Attempted both college math and English in year 1, English math in year 1, college level course completion in year 1, various credit accumulation points, and then also some persistence points. And we can highlight our college. And as you notice, some colleges have chosen not to reveal themselves. But if I highlight Marion Technical College on this again shows where we stand. And this particular one is earned 24 plus college credits in the first year. I can change it to completed college math in the first year. And it will adjust around for us. We We can also take a look, and another thing that we are focused on is improvement by subgroup. So we want to know how well we're doing in a variety of subgroup, basically 25 and older, minority versus non-minority, Pell versus not Pell, and so on. The other thing that's set up here is that we can set this up to either look at all students or degree-seeking students. We can exclude the dual enrollment students from these cohorts. And that's really important. Our dual enrollment students at Marion Tech, which I think is typical of across the state, complete courses at about a 95% rate. And that would compare with somewhere around an 80% rate for non-dual enrollment students. So it's important to be able to, if you're really trying to understand what's working and what's not working, it's really important to take dual enrollment students out of the mix or put them in the mix, depending on what it is you're trying to analyze. You can also filter the college. If we want to just look at colleges in our size, we can do that, and so on. So we can take a look at. I mean, in Ohio, colleges range from probably an FTE of under 1,000 to well over 10,000. And it's important in this case, based on the cohort size, to look at, who's in your group to get an idea of how you're comparing against them. The one thing that we have been talking about a little bit, especially with the Pell in Prison experiment, not experiment, but Pell in Prison now, is the ability to exclude incarcerated students from the subgroups. We're not quite there yet. That's something that we're working on. But you can get an idea of what the cohorts look like, the different subgroups look like. And again, you can highlight your college if you want, which will show where you stand, easily show where you stand comparison to other colleges. I've mentioned this before, and I don't want to belabor the point, but basically, we in Ohio, really through OACC, we have a spirit of, I'll call it coopetition. We cooperate with other colleges on projects like this, but we also compete with other colleges because, as I like to tell our folks at Marion Tech, if we're running faster, but everybody else is running even faster than us, they're improving more, we may end up losing state subsidy funding, which means that we won't be able to provide the level of services that we want to provide to students. So these dashboards are really critical for us to help communicate the information to our group, Marion Tech, the people who are really in charge of a lot of the improvement projects that we have underway. And just this is just a tremendous effort that OACC has coordinated, as Laura said, with the help of CCRC, in particular John Fink on the dashboards. So I'll stop sharing that one now. And I guess the only thing I would add is that the dashboards that we have may not make a lot of sense for your state, but the concept of easy to understand dashboards that really give you progress information in a easy way are important regardless of what your state's showing. Laura, do you have anything to add on that?
Thanks, Bob. I would add too, for us, I think committing to something over a period of time and making adjustments and evolving it based on feedback from the users is a really important principle for the work. I was an IR director a long time ago. And I remember, you'd see this really cool report, or we didn't have as many dashboards back then. I'll show my age. We weren't using Tableau to this extent, but you'd see it one time and then not see it again. And so I think we're at a point now where we have this network. Our institutional research leaders and other college officers feel like they can depend on these coming out at the same time every year. We release them during our Winter Student Success Leadership Institute. And I just think that has been important. So, I hope we'll be able to do it for many years going into the future. I think we're going to shift now to talk about what comes next, right, Bob, or what we're faced with
Yes. Yeah.
in terms of the labor market and
Mhm.
employment metrics.
Yes. Um, I think that everybody's familiar with some of the financial value transparency acts and things like that that we are getting uh, some chatter about. In Ohio, for this upcoming year, 5% of our subsidy funding will be based on wage outcomes. And so it's really important for us to understand what's going on with graduates. And this has been characterized as, community college 1.0, 2.0, 3.0. This is a nice slide that OACC and CCA and some other people have developed. Basically, we're into a community college 3.0. We're not just concerned with access. We're not just concerned with completion. We are also now concerned with what do graduates actually do after they are out of college? How much do they make? Where do they work? Is the investment worthwhile for them? And I think that we expect that we're going to continue to see an increased focus on that from a lot of different directions.
So I'll jump in here, Bob. So
Mhm.
knowing that this was of high interest to our network of colleges and also to policymakers at the state level, we've been exploring ways that the Success Center could continue to provide value and support institutions as we look more at that post-completion success. It has been important from the beginning. A lot of this work came out of the completion by design effort, which was designing with the end in mind. So thinking about what students' end goals are, and then making sure that we are mapping out the right pathways and experiences and have the support in place for them to achieve those goals. So as we, looked at that and also engaged with our partners in Michigan, we found that we are, two states that have a lot in common in terms of, our state association for community colleges, the history of our success centers and the work, but also some institutional commonalities and challenges with fluctuations in enrollment, a huge opportunity for workforce development. There are many, many unfilled associate degree level and certificate level jobs in both of our states. And so we came together to think about, how we could support each other and leverage different resources and also partnerships that we both have to help our colleges really amp up work around career pathways to good jobs. So, thinking about how can we help more community college students achieve economic mobility and inform the work of our institutions with all of the research in the field and partnerships like the one that we have with Community College Research Center and also the Aspen Institute and the National Center for Inquiry and Improvement. So this started, we call it Pathways Together, Advancing Student Success and Economic Mobility. This started in the fall of 2024. We held our first joint Success Institute this past February, and we're going to be doing a number of different things together with our colleges, including looking at labor market data. So the timing is great because we have this initiative already underway. At the same time, the state is moving to including an employment metric in the funding model. And so we have a lot of different things that we're exploring right now in terms of dashboards and also nailing down exactly how that employment metric is going to work in the formula. The state, the proposed budget for the state also includes an incentive for completions in technician aligned associate degree pathways. So there's just a tremendous amount of activity. And I think Bob's going to talk in a little bit more detail about how Marion Technical College is responding to that and what some of the opportunities are for our network.
Yeah, thanks, Laura. Laura, I noticed one question in the chat. I took a peek while you were, and the question centered around whether or not those same kind of dashboards are available for the universities in Ohio. And I just simply don't know the answer to that. I don't know whether the University Association has done that or not. I don't know if you are aware of that or not.
I'm not aware of like a comparable resource existing on the university funding model at this time.
Okay. And I guess we can say that the philosophy for funding universities in Ohio is very similar. It's based on performance funding, completions, and so on. But I think the metrics are maybe slightly different, or the categories are a little bit different. But the overarching philosophy is very similar. We've talked about this a little bit. In Ohio, 5% of the state funding is going to be tied to postgraduate employment wages. The way that's going to work is, from what we understand, is the amount of wage that's higher than what a high school graduate would make in a given area. And that's going to get a little bit interesting, I think. And it's the final formula is still being developed. The other thing I would mention is that some community colleges in Ohio also have property tax funding. Marion Tech does not. There's 5 or 6 that do, and then so it's a little bit different than other states, which sometimes have a lot of property tax funding. I'm guessing that many are familiar with this. If not, we can provide a link to this, but it is called the PSEO Post-Secondary Employment Outcomes Tool by the U.S. Census Bureau. The Ohio subsidy funding is going to be based on this outcomes sort of thing here. If we have time towards the end, I'll jump in and show that tool also. Hopefully, many of you have looked at that. It's a lot of good information. It's not perfect information. There's some exclusions, and you just have to understand what's going on with it. It's one of the things in this data set is that there's not an easy way to differentiate some of the subgroups that we are concerned about when we want to narrow the gap between basically majority and minority different kind of populations. But that's one tool that's out there that's publicly available to everybody if the state's participating in it. So several years ago at Marion Tech, we entered, and several other community colleges in Ohio do this as well. We have an agreement with the Ohio Department of Job and Family Services for what's called a wage match. And in effect, we submit a list of Social Security numbers to the Department of Job and Family Services after we get a data sharing agreement in place. And what we get back is specific wage information for the list of graduates that we submit, or if we have students who attend that didn't graduate, we submit some of those too, just as a comparison point. The table you're looking at basically will give you an idea of the number of records we submitted for each decade group, how many were matched, and then later I'll show you some of the information that we get back. As I mentioned, we've been doing this for the last probably 7 or 8 years. We do it once or twice a year. What it gives us is very, very specific information about our graduates, what they earn, provided they work for an Ohio employer that submits an unemployment filing record, basically. So it's going to exclude self-employed individuals. It will also exclude individuals employed by the government in some cases. So again, it's not perfect data, but it's pretty good data. And we've used this for a long time. You can see here, pardon me, that we look at people who work at least 40 weeks in 2023. We get a pretty good match rate from graduates from roughly 25 years ago. Some of the graduates who worked who graduated way early when the college started, we don't find nearly as many matches on those because they're probably retired or something. And so I'll go through some of the information that we get from this. And as Laura mentioned earlier, the Ohio Department of Higher Ed Chancellor, we shared this data with them when we get a visit from them. And this, I think, helped maybe spearhead the effort to really use wage data in some of the outcomes. It's been a topic of conversation for a long time. So I'm going to give you just a few things about what we know about Marion Tech graduates. Again, this is not survey data. It's not somebody's opinion. It's data that employers file for anybody who is working in Ohio. And in some cases, most cases, the Ohio is the employer is an Ohio-based employer or an Ohio employer. But in other cases, it's an employer who's based out of state, but they have to file the Ohio unemployment because they have people working in Ohio. And this is the average of total wages earned in 2023. The median amounts are similar to this. There's some slight differences. If you work with Excel a lot, you know, it's a little easier to get an average wage than it is to get a median wage. And so that's what we report here. But I have done some work with the median wage also. And I think this one is kind of critical here. Basically, if somebody attended since 2015 but did not graduate, then they're just under $40,000 average a year compared to the values that you see here. You also notice that it kind of peaks after several years of being in the in the workforce. It starts out a little slower for recent graduates, and we understand that kind of makes sense. We can also track this by the graduate department and get a little bit of a trend, so we can tell our prospective students based on their major what they are likely to be able to earn. And this is not decade groups here, but this is actually the academic year. So this would be graduates primarily from May of 16, May of 17, May of 18. We also have some summer and fall graduates in this information too. But it gives us a really detailed look at what our graduates are doing, and we track this trend wise over time. We just pulled down another data set last week. Haven't had a chance to do much with that yet. It's again, this is compiled by us. It excludes self-employed people in military, so it is not perfect data. The other thing that the data set does not include is the occupation. We know what they graduated in, and we know the industry code in which a student works, but we don't know the specific job they're doing. So, for example, it may be that a tech program manager is working in a health facility, or that a nurse is working as a nurse in an industry somewhere. The occupation is lacking, and that's lacking from a lot of the data sets that are available. We can, I'll show you one other thing here, and I don't know, Laura, can you check the chat? I don't know if there are any questions at this point that we would want to look at, or.
Bob, someone asked for the link, Chloe asked for the link to the PSEO tool, and I popped that into the chat.
Okay, super.
I don't see anything else at the moment.
Okay, so I'm gonna, we have a couple minutes yet, and then we can take some other questions. I'm gonna pop in real quick to the way that we use this data in a program review. So we have, we do now an annual program review at Marion Tech, and we've been using the wage data for a while. And again, our program review, I don't want to pretend that it's perfect. It's not. It's still a work in progress. But what we provide each of our major programs, and I'm going to blow this up and then scroll through, so I hope nobody gets dizzy from it. But basically, we start by looking at the revenue that each program generates based on the course and based on the differentiated subsidy. This list here is a listing of the, in effect, the per credit hour revenue that we get for a completed subsidy level. And then we provide that to each department. Then we summarize their revenue and expense in each area. Revenue from subsidy, tuition revenue from general, tuition revenue from early college students, from prison students, and so on. And then we also look at the overhead share, how much revenue students generate if they're taking courses in other departments. And this is going to become more prominent, but we also list the graduate average wage from graduates from, in this particular case, 2001 on for the most recent year. So we've been tracking that for a while prior to some of the most recent sorts of things that we have with this. And then, so we provide this data for each program director, and then we ask them to go through and answer a series of questions, and basically that is the actual program review. So we don't want them to spend time gathering data. We provide the data, and then we ask them to go through and take a look at what they think about the data, what it means, and so on. And I'll jump off of this now, and we can take some other questions. We find that this is a fairly simple way of doing this, and we're not asking them to go into a big in-depth discussion, but just does the data show the standards met? What do you think about it? What are you going to do about it? And then we have this all on one form in Excel, so they can see what they did last year and then what they want to do this year, and it gives them an idea of how they're tracking over time. Okay. With that, I think that we are ready for questions. I know Laura has a hard stop here in just a couple minutes. So does anyone have any questions that we can answer or show more stuff on or anything like that at this point?
While we're waiting, we will wait a few minutes for questions to come in. I just want to summarize, I hope you could see the evolution of this data work around student success in Ohio. And I think it's really important in the same way that as a field, we really shifted from focusing on access to completion and then, developed robust metrics and reporting and data within that space. It's now incumbent on us to do the same thing with the post-completion success and really get our hands around what's happening for students after they leave our institutions, whether, that's first transferring to a university and then moving into the labor market or going directly into jobs after completing a credential at the community college.
Mm-hmm.
So it's been really exciting, to be part of it over time and to see, what is possible with the different data sets and sources, especially with leaders like Bob, who, roll up their sleeves and help us figure this out.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so here's a question, Bob. What advice do you have for colleges who need to start collecting post-employment data?
There's a couple pieces of advice. First of all, I would look at the PSEO dashboard. That's a publicly available, as long as your state participates in that, and I think most do, but not all do, and see if your college is on that PSEO dashboard. The other piece of advice I would give is be wary of self-reported student survey wage results. Those are I'm not even sure in that case that it's better than no information at all. I think that a lot of times what students understand is their net pay. They don't necessarily understand their gross pay. And if your college is like ours, we've had a lot of difficulty getting responses. That's why we went to the wage match with the Department of Job and Family Services. The other thing I'll say is that I am involved along with a colleague from Marion Community College in Ohio and some people from the National Student Clearinghouse and ATD in a project called the Coleridge Project, which is an effort to match wage data with basically college graduate data, and in a way that provides us an ability to track it based on a student's, for example, Pell status in college or minority status or first gen status, those kind of things. We just received word yesterday that that project is taking another step forward, and so pay attention to that. I think would be something important on that. It's we've looked at another project that's similar to that. It's called KY Stats right now that does that. The downside, if you're a border college and enter into an agreement with your state is that you may not get state, you may not get information about out of state kind of things. You just would get information about your state things. In our case, because we get such a high percentage of matches, we feel like it's good data and the trend is important. So my advice would be, first, contact your local JFS to see if there is a way to get that data for your state. Look at the PSEO and don't be afraid to track it. But move away from anecdotal evidence. We fight this all the time. One of our health program directors knows a student who just got a $20,000 signing bonus and is making 80 or 90,000 a year. And so that becomes the information that they use when they're passing it along to students, which is true for that student. But I think you've got to have more than anecdotal evidence on it to really know what's going on. Let's see, I'm just looking at, okay, and you provide the link for that. Yeah.
There's a question from Terra State. I think our own Terra State in Ohio, from Chloe.
Okay. Wow, Chloe, that's an interesting question. So, for me, I don't know Tableau yet real well. I've played around with it a little bit. Probably played with it before it was as easy to use as it is now. I think initially work with Excel dashboards and visualizations and things like that. I think Power BI or Tableau is important, but I would also say don't get carried away with the dashboards. It needs to be information that people are going to use that's useful to them, not just neat and things like that. And we can talk more if you want to send us an email. I can get some other things. Scheduling classes is difficult. We have looked at some of the commercially available tools for scheduling classes and really didn't find them, for a college our size, didn't really find them all that helpful. We are looking at multi-year scheduling. We just moved to 8 weeks for a lot of classes. We've had an experiment going and that's proven to be successful. We're rolling out more in the fall. And so, we'll see how that goes. Post the name of the 2 projects that you mentioned in the chat. The one project is the post-secondary employment that Laura provided a link for, and we can make sure everybody gets that link. The other project that I mentioned is Coleridge project. It's C-O. I didn't spell it right.
I put that in the chat too. I didn't have a link, but I put the name of the project.
Okay, good. And more to come on that. It's something we've been working on for a year, maybe a little longer than that now. The holdup is the data sharing agreements from the state agencies. And again, we just got that information in. And I'll mention real quick, this information is not perfect. One of the things that we are working with is a way to use the post-secondary, the PDP, National Student Clearinghouse dashboard information. When we look at our wage data, we just know they graduated from Marion Tech. What we don't know, or we haven't taken time yet to do, is did they earn another degree? And if they did, that's going to probably skew the wages. So we're working constantly to try to improve the level of information we have. And CCA has been great about getting us up to speed on the PDP and some of those kind of things. And so there's more to come on this, but I think it's safe to say that we are all going to have to get on top of it. It's not something that we're just going to be able to ignore. Jennifer, I don't know if you have anything else or if you want to close us out. We're available. Our links are in the PowerPoint that you'll get. If you have questions, we're happy to answer those afterwards. So.
Well, I just want to say thank you so much to both of you for joining us. It's been such a great conversation, even just from hearing questions in the chat and hearing you guys share the wealth of knowledge and experience that you're bringing into this as others are trying to do the same and replicate the work that you are doing. And so we will be, for those here and for those who weren't able to join, please know we will be following up with a recording, slides, as well as any important links. Dr. Haas and Laura have already said that they're willing to talk to anyone who would like to discuss this further. So again, just please let us know. We'll make sure to make those connections. But with that, thank you everyone for joining us, and we hope you have a good rest of your day.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.